All right, welcome everybody. We are here at FATV Studios for another episode of Cronin's Corner. And today I could not be more pleased to be joined by Representative Margaret Scarsdale, who is my newest colleague in the Massachusetts legislature and the newest addition to the North Central Delegation. So Margaret, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor.
So you come from Pepperell. And you've had really an incredible career that's prepared you to serve in the state legislature and education, on the select board in Pepperell. Could you tell everybody just about your background and then perhaps why you decided to run for state rep?
Sure. You are exactly right about some of the work that you mentioned. I think I came to the select board very gradually. I had just come out of the classroom. I had retired from teaching, and there was suddenly a sandwich board announcing that a gas pipeline was slated to come through Pepperell. And looking back, it's like, oh my gosh, a sandwich board changed my life, because I went to that meeting. And it was at that meeting that I really saw for the first time the power of community engagement, and that was throughout that 3-year battle, you know, going all across the state from Deerfield over to Dracut, like at every town and every community center, church basement, people gathered together to work on an issue, and I was absolutely hooked. And shortly after that, Pepperell was unfortunate enough to be slated to get a toxic dirt site, so that continued that kind of work. And I had a chance to join a committee, a bylaw committee, and we worked on a noise bylaw. I was chair of that committee, which was great because now Pepperell will never have something like a compressor station.
Right.
And that led to the select board. And I will say another kind of defining moment for me was when I was being sworn in for the select board. And I realized that was a kind of a different arena, and that the community engagement and the power that I had seen on that private side was not going to translate to municipal government.
Yeah.
And nothing could be further from the truth, because at its heart are issues that people are facing. And I think people are genuinely affected when they realize someone cares about those issues and is willing to work hard to solve them. And that involves building collaborations, which I love doing. And then that led to the state rep race, and after all of that,
history.
Here I am.
I love that story. I think I've had a couple of sandwich boards that have changed my life too, but not in as profound ways. Maybe my pant size. Could you talk about just how being at the municipal level and serving on the select board really prepared you to take on this role at the state level?
Yes. I mean, I think, first of all, just the magnitude of the issues facing a small town, and really all of the small towns in this district and in this area, North Central, you know, from the budget to school issues to roads to council on aging. You're trying to juggle all of those things, and it's a massive amount of information, and you go from your own personal budget of, you know, whatever that is a year, $50,000, $75,000 a year, to now $33 million, and literally trying to understand that and how you can meet the needs of the most people. Learning to work together. The great thing I think about municipal government is people aren't so much tied up about a party or a label. It's who's going to do the work. And
who can deliver too, right? Yeah, who can walk the walk?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yes, because it's easy to throw out promises or platitudes or things that you're going to work on, but then you have to figure out how to make that work, who to talk to, who to bring together, how to resolve you know, issues that come up, because you want X and I want Y, so how are we going to get to C in the middle?
How do we split this down the middle?
Yes.
Right. One of the things that that really affected me to this day was the conversations I had going around during my first campaign. And I can draw a direct line from those problems that I identified talking to stakeholders and community members that I didn't know much about to the work that I'm doing right now. And that's, I think about the things that we're advocating for now: housing development incentives, increased access to vocational training, things like that that take up all my day now. But it really started from those conversations as a candidate. How and you ran a great campaign, and it was incredibly close, right? I think you. How many votes did you win by for everybody
7.
at home? 7 votes. So don't ever let anybody tell you that your vote doesn't matter.
That's right. Yes.
So it was a squeaker. But during that campaign, you fought so hard and you ran so hard. What did you learn about the communities you now represent during that campaign that informed your work as a representative now?
Oh my gosh, those conversations, John, were so heartfelt. They really inspire me to this day. They help ground me, I think, in the work. And it was conversations from every aspect, of life, whether it was economical, whether it was a medical issue that they were struggling with. But I think the thing that most resonates with me, certainly I keep those conversations in mind, but it was the very last day of campaigning. It was November 7th.
And you're just exhausted by that point,
Oh
right?
my
It's
gosh.
like everybody's just like, I can't wait for this to be over. I don't care if I win or lose. I just want it to be done, right?
But we were out that last Monday, and I had a volunteer with me, and she was so spunky and just had so much energy. And it was about 4 o'clock, and I was like, all right, let's. She said, no, we can do one more turf, which is a neighborhood. And I went to this house.
And you probably got 7 votes on that turf, maybe, or who knows, right?
Well, I just had a really profound experience meeting this woman who came to the door, and she had her arms crossed, and she told me point blank she didn't know if she was going to vote, because what did it matter? But she let me talk, and over the course of the conversation, I noticed that she started to soften, and then she started to ask questions. And when I turned to leave, she stuck out her hand and she thanked me, and she said, "This has made such a difference. I didn't think anybody cared." And I mean, that just makes my heart feel so good. Like,
it's the
people
power
should
of shoe
feel
leather
cared
too,
about.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody talks about social media or ads or targeting people, but
no,
there's no
it's that.
substitute for in person and knocking on somebody's door.
It is very powerful, and people, I think they feel I got the sense they felt very disenfranchised in a lot of ways. The people don't care about their situation, and I let them see people do care, and that is very powerful.
Absolutely. So it's an exciting time in the legislature right now. The House has just passed an enormous tax relief package. The House is taking on their budget next week, and then I will get to work in May, and we will do a tax relief package in the Senate, and we will pass a budget and then come together with the House in conference committee to send something to Governor Healy. But it's really, I think it's got to be an exciting time to be a freshman, because there's a lot going on and a lot of moving pieces. And at the same time, we are having a debate and an arm wrestling match about how to spend the new revenue that the state is going to collect through the Fair Share Amendment, and what are the best investments we can make in transportation, infrastructure, and education.
Exactly.
Setting the table, what are you most excited about as you enter your first House budget debate, and what are some of the priorities that you're going to be advocating for?
I think excited about just seeing the process unfold.
Yeah.
It's one thing to talk to colleagues. It's one thing to watch old videos from previous budget cycles. It's another thing to really try to grapple with it on the ground in the moment. And there are just so many moving pieces and so many needs. I mean, how do you try to meet the most needs for the most people? So I'm really excited about that. So very fortunate. Everybody is so helpful at the State House. You can go to anyone, whether it's a senator, a representative, an aide, a staffer. everyone is willing to just sit down with you and, open their notebooks or, their computers and share things with you. So that's amazing. For priorities,
and everybody's been there before too. I think one of the things I appreciated when it was maybe the day that I was sworn in, the Senate President, Senator Spilka, said to me, I was here 20 years ago and I didn't know a damn thing. But ask questions, there's no stupid questions. It's a steep learning curve, but everybody's been there before, and everybody's been the new kid at school.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And people are willing to look back and say, all right, now you're new, let me, give you some advice. And I've heard so many times being at the State House, it's like drinking out of a fire hose, and our daughter's a firefighter, so I've seen those nozzles up really close. And there's just so much coming at you.
But if you think of the breadth of just the budget and every sector and part of our lives that it touches, transportation, healthcare, education, higher education, workforce development, housing. The breadth of it is pretty awesome, but it takes a long time to understand. I mean, it takes a career to understand the ins and outs of the budgets and to figure out where the programs are that we need to double down our investments are, where we can pare back, and to make sure it's fair and reflects, as you said, the needs of the most needs of the most people.
Yes, exactly. But you had asked about specifics, and I think uppermost for me is really trying to concentrate on what I've been hearing from the First Middlesex, which is about the school funding.
And what towns are in the First Middlesex that you represent?
Sure. So the state was redistricted in 2020, so I have one new town, but now I have Ashby, Dunstable, Groton, Lunenburg, Pepperell, and Townsend. And Lunenburg is the new town to come in. I have 3 of the precincts, and the 4th one Rep. Kushmarek has. So it's wonderful to be in a new community and make new connections and build new partnerships. But they've all talked to me about the schools, and they've talked to me about the roads. The senior centers, we just had a regional call a couple of weeks ago with the senior centers and the food pantries in the district, trying to understand what the specific needs were. So I feel like my main role right now is to try to advocate as strongly as I can for those needs that have been expressed. These are really dire, and you know how it is in a small town. Mostly residential tax base, like you're trying to...
Small commercial tax, yeah.
Yes,
right?
Yes, so, everything has to come off the backs of the citizens and the taxpayers, and just trying to see what kind of relief we can give to them.
What has been the most surprising thing as you've begun this work? You were sworn in January, so you haven't been at it that long, right?
Right.
3 or 4 months. What has surprised you the most about the day-to-day work of a representative?
As I mentioned, I feel like
the email? I think that was it for me.
Oh, thank you. I'd forgotten about the email. The volume of emails is... You could spend a whole day just trying. Luckily, my legislative aide handles most of those. That definitely is one thing I was totally not prepared for.
And I just call it incoming, right? Like in the Army, you'd say, like, you are reacting to contact. You're reacting to contact and trying to respond, but respond well to people all day long, every day of the year.
Every day. And the thing is, like, I'll go to bed at 10 and I've checked my email and I'm caught up. And by 7 in the morning, there's 50 or 75. And you have meetings and, other things, events to go throughout the day. So definitely the email, and I think I would just say the purposefulness of the work. Like I've seen that since Kinder Morgan. It's amazing, but it's a whole different level at the State House to be able to affect 40,000 people, and then statewide for things that we're voting on. It's just so profound and so humbling. And very exciting because everybody else is involved in the same work. So you have partners, and it is great to feel that you're in it with a lot of other people.
Certainly. What do you think about what you'd like to get done over the course of the 2-year legislative session, or what are some goals or things that beyond the budget, beyond next year's budget, that are really important, that require the state's attention and are a priority for you?
Oh gosh, I've thought about this. I was asked that so many times on the campaign
Yeah.
trail, and I always think about Thanksgiving dinner. Like, oh, the turkey's important, but so is the pie.
Yeah.
And I really want bread with butter. I mean, like you can't leave any of Thanksgiving dinner out.
Right.
So all the things we've talked about are important, but I feel like the two foundational things for me are affordable housing. That is such a crisis, and working with people, and the wait list is 5 years or 7 years. I don't know. It's one thing to even say you've got to wait 3 months for a house. Like, all right, I guess I'll camp with somebody
Right.
for 3 months, but 5 years, 7 years, we have to address that, and that puts pressure on small towns. Where you're going to put that, increase services. And climate change, I feel like I've always said I don't think that that's just the defining issue of our time. It's the issue that's going to define every time after this one. And the more we can get a handle on that, the faster we can get a handle on that, the better we are going to be, and our children and our grandchildren. So
Yeah.
looking at ways to help address that.
And we need more energy of every type. And I think we got really good news in Massachusetts in the paper this morning. The hydropower line from Quebec has been approved, I believe, to go through Maine to Massachusetts. So, there's not just an environmental justice component. We also need to bring people's bills down, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So if we
Yes.
can have a more competitive energy market through offshore wind, through hydro, through natural gas, all those things together in the aggregate will provide some much needed relief.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think everything is on the table right now, and we just have to be smart about how we're moving forward.
Certainly. So can you talk about your work in education and before you really entered public life, and talk about just how that makes you who you are, and kind of informs your voice as a representative now?
Oh, sure. So education, I taught English language arts to middle schoolers. Which I'd have to say was probably a little, if I'm being honest, a little bit of a troubled relationship to begin with, at the beginning, because middle schoolers are a unique
That's a tough
set
age.
of kids.
Yeah.
Yes. Everyone I tell that I taught middle school, it's always their response is accompanied by a groan, either at the beginning or the end, and how do you do it? And
So how old are the kids that you
12
had?
and 13.
Yeah, that's a tough age.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're not children, but
They're old
not,
enough to cause some trouble,
yes,
right?
yeah, they're just coming into their own. Their bodies are changing. Like it's an awkward time. I would not go back to that for any amount of money.
Yeah.
But I think it taught me a really profound lesson. I think I went in thinking, I'm in control, and this is the way the classroom is going to be. And there was a lot of angst as we tried to figure out, and I'm going,
As we said
I'm
in
the
the Army,
boss.
the enemy gets a vote, right? Yeah.
Well, yes. And so as I got to know the kids and found out they're really funny,
Yeah.
and they're witty, and they're kind of free to be them because they're not old enough to start having that many, second thoughts about stuff. They just blurt things out.
Yeah.
And once I realized education is teamwork, right? You can't force feed anyone education. That's not how it works. You make them excited about it, and you do that by listening and finding out what they're interested in. And once I made that mental shift, our classrooms were brilliant. Like, we had conversations, kids were so engaged, and kids who were, their head buried in their book. Or I remember one kid, when we were doing Shakespeare, he's like, well, I'm not doing that. And by the time we got around to, we were actually acting out places, he wanted to do a distinguished roles, and he was up there in front of the classroom, fainting and fawning, and it's like, yeah, this is what it's about. So that was that's been so helpful to think, at this role, I think it might be easy to say, I'm the elected official, I know what's best, I'm going to impart that to you, and you really are working on behalf of everyone else.
And then whether it's a 12-year-old or it's a constituent, you won't be successful if you don't meet people where they are.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, and that's
Yes.
and that's a great lesson to learn.
Yes.
For me, being in elected office, every day there are high highs and low lows, and it's you're riding a roller coaster. Some days if something happens that's great and makes a difference in the community, I say I've got the best job in the world. Other times I feel the opposite.
Yes.
Could you talk about have you had any of those high highs since you've been elected? Or days that it just felt everything that you went through the campaign, which was such a slog and so close, and then through the recount and everything that you overcome. Have you had a moment where you just really enjoyed being able to serve the community in the way you do now?
Yes, and I would say probably every day there's a high or a low. But I'm thinking about the best high that I've had was getting a sick leave bank through for a constituent. And it started in January. I mean, the day that I was sworn in, I found an email from a few weeks prior, because emails come in even if you aren't sworn in and can look at them. And, figured out the process, and I was told we had time and we're moving along, and it had to be done by March 31st. And it's, I check in periodically, how's it going? Oh, it's going fine. And then by March 1st, I'm starting to get a little nervous. And then there was a hiccup, and, the days are rolling by, the family's on pins and needles. I'm trying to work everything, my staff is. And it came down to the last 2 days, and a call to the Speaker's office. They're like, we're on it. And watching that unfold in the chamber with, now this bill has to go before 3 other committees in 2 days and get to the governor. And it got done at like 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon with 2 hours to spare, and we were cheering.
Go pour yourself a martini when that happens,
oh my gosh,
right? Yeah.
Yes, yes. But I mean, the hard days are when you realize you can't do something for someone, like it's outside of your purview, and you can make calls, but now it's in
somebody that you really know that's really struggling.
Oh yes,
right? Yeah.
yes, and that's hard.
And I think one of the privileges about being in the state legislature at our level is it's a big enough job where you can have impact statewide, but it's small enough where the people in the communities on the ground, person to person.
Yes.
And I feel like I represent 170,000 people in my Senate seat. I feel like I'm 1 degree of separation away from everybody, right? Everybody knows, which is good, because people come to your office and to my office for help. And I do think that us seeing people who are housing insecure, are trying to access SNAP benefits because they can't feed their family, seniors who can't pay for their heat. I mean, all of that casework really does inform the work we do and the things we advocate for at the state level in a way that I think is powerful and makes us much better advocates.
Yes, but powerful, like people hear that word, it's powerful in such a meaningful and purposeful way. Like that's the best kind of power. It's not about me and it's not about you. It's about us and about, working together, because, what did you say, 140,000?
70, yeah.
170,000 people, they can't come to the State House. 40,000 of my people can't come to the State House. So we are there to work on their behalf, and I just think the work is amazing.
One of the things that we take seriously in North Central Massachusetts is bringing the delegation together and trying as best we can not just to work collaboratively together across parties. And we are very proud. We've got in our North Central delegation, we have independents, Republicans, and Democrats. And we're all in the same group text, and we're all in kind of constant communication with each other on issues. Could you talk about just kind of joining that informal caucus and if that's been helpful or...
Oh, it totally has been. Just the knowledge that people have who've been here longer, who've, we were working on an issue with your office for a veteran in Lunenburg who had housing issues, and we're new to this, and your office knows who to contact and how to follow up with these. So that's incredibly helpful. And it's like what I was talking about with Kinder Morgan. We all serve the people of this district. So it's really not so much about labels. It's what are your ideas? What are your contacts? How can we support you, or how can you support me? And it's so collegial, and I've learned so much, and just looking forward to being a stronger partner, so that for the next election, when new people are coming in, that now I'm able to give them the support that I got.
And you've also built a great team. Can you talk about the team of people that work for you and who have joined you in this work?
Oh, yes. So I have a legislative aide who grew up in Ashby, lived there all of her life. She's an attorney. She is fabulous. She handles my email and my calendar and legislative requests. And I hired a district director out of my own salary, because as a first year, you just get the one person. But I felt like it was so important to be able to be in the district a large amount of time. And she has been able to, like, she scheduled the forum with the senior centers and the food pantries. She arranges all of my office hours. We're in our second month of office hours, going out to all 6 towns, which have been fabulous. The response has been so amazing. We have a room full of people. The last time we were in Lunenburg, the room was too small for us. Like, we had people waiting outside. So yeah, I have a fabulous team, and I can call your office and people will help out. I can call Dan Sinna's office or Mike Kushmerik's, and it's like you have access to hundreds of people, and that's so helpful.
Absolutely. What's your favorite town? No, I'm kidding. No, that was a trick. It was good. It's good. You're on your toes.
It's like
You're
a
good.
parent. You love them all, right?
No, absolutely. What are you looking forward to the most over the next couple of months?
Definitely getting the budget through. I think it's a wonderful process, but it's also, there's so much to see and learn and try to understand. And then once we're finished, it goes to the Senate, and like you said, then we're going to work collaboratively on that to come out with one final budget we can send to the governor. After that, I think being able to focus more in the district, even though we've made that a priority. I mean, next week I'll be at the State House all 5 days.
Yep. And you're always juggling, right?
Yes.
And I should be in the State House more. I should be in the district more. You're always kind of, there's a fear of missing out when you're in one place and not the other.
Yes,
so
which
it's
is
a tough
also,
balance to strike.
But it's great to have that team. Like, I know your team, if you're not able to be in the district, Susan or Beth or other members of your staff are there, and that's wonderful to be part of a team like that.
Certainly, and again, it's an exciting time to be at the State House. We've got, between now and July 31st, I think we've got 3 really big things going on: tax relief, the budget that we need to pass, and then deciding how to apportion new revenue from the Fair Share Amendment into education and transportation. I couldn't have a better partner. I'm so glad you're a part of the North Central Delegation now officially.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you coming on the show today. I hope you'll come back.
Oh, I absolutely will.
Think about
yes.
what your favorite town is. I'm gonna return for an answer. But we've got about a minute left. Could you tell people just how to get in touch with your office, or how to reach out to you?
Sure. The best way is probably email margaret.scarsdale@mahouse.gov. We will get back to you. Usually we're responding within 24 hours. That's the most efficient way, I think.
Absolutely. Okay, Margaret, thank you so much for joining. And again, it's been so great to work with you here in the district and the State House, and I look forward to continuing to partner with you.
Me as well.
Everybody, that's it for us this month on Cronin's Corner. We'll be back with you next month. Thanks so much for joining, and take care.